Hello everyone, welcome to Big Rock Moto. Thank you so much for tuning in. I have two favors. One, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Two, whenever you're shopping, please use my affiliate links. I really appreciate that. Alright, so this is what we're doing today's video. Very simple. We're going to ride the 390 Adventure R off-road and on-road, and I'm going to give you my early impressions. This is just an early impressions test, so please keep that in mind as I tell you how I feel about the bike. I only have about 70-80 miles on this bike just to kind of get used to the feel of it. And so let's go for a ride. All right, highway travel. So your definition of high-speed highway is going to be different depending on where you live in the world, right? So here in the United States, traffic moves fast on the freeways. 80, 90 miles an hour, sometimes even more than that can be the flow of traffic depending on where you are. If you're listening from another country somewhere, you may think, well, that's insane. We never even have anywhere in the country we can go that fast. That's true. That's why it's hard for manufacturers. They got to make a bike that works for the whole globe, but some people only go 50 miles an hour and some people need to go 90 miles an hour. Let's see how the 390 Adventure R does on United States freeway. So let's go. Certainly no problem merging up to speed. That was fine. I was giving it full throttle, but it was fine. I think we have a little bit of a tailwind behind us. That's going to actually help us out a little bit. So let's see how fast is traffic going. I wanted to kind of gauge my risk of getting a speeding ticket here. Yeah, traffic's already going 80 to 85. So here's 80 miles an hour. We're at 7,000 RPM exactly to go, yeah, just over 7,000 RPM to go 80 miles an hour. It's buzzy, okay? So this engine does have some buzz to it. You feel it mostly through the handlebars. Like I feel the vibration comes and goes at different speeds. Like there's some at about 70, 72, and then yeah, then it just feels kind of buzzy. I would say anything above about 75 miles an hour, it feels pretty buzzy through the handlebars. I mean, it's a small engine, it's spinning at a high RPM, so you're going to have that. Now, without going on an all-day ride, I can't tell you how bad it really is or how it would really affect you over a long day. Man, these rain grooves really make the bike want to wobble. I was hoping I could get with some fast traffic here so I could really bring this thing out without being too exposed to the police. We'll get in the fast lane and we'll pace these guys. At 70 miles an hour, there's not much vibration happening. It's only when you get to, I think, about 75 that you start to feel the buzz. The wind protection from this fairing is exceptional, best in the class. The Ibex is okay, I think, pretty good. This is, I think, even better. This is very comfortable, even going. Yeah, it quickly gets up to 90 miles an hour, so there's not a problem with power. The wind protection, like I was saying, is super good on this. It really puts you in a pretty nice pocket of air. I'm very, very impressed with this fairing. It is so much better than the ones on the 890 and the 790. They really did their homework and improved the aerodynamics quite a bit. Yeah, this bike, I guarantee you this bike will hit 100. So I think the thing is with, like, I think if the bike was any lighter than this, it would almost get blown around too much on the highway. I think, you know, when you get under that 400-pound mark and you're traveling at high speeds with traffic and winds and stuff, I think you don't want too light of a bike, in my opinion, has been my experience. I think this is kind of the sweet spot. It's just heavy enough that it feels pretty stable, but it's not too heavy when you go off-road. Yeah, 95 is no problem. So I think this feels like it'll go over 100. We'll find a good place to test that later. Okay, let's go in the freeway the other direction into the wind. I really want to see. I mean, we have about probably 20 mile an hour wind, so it's really going to affect us a lot. Come on, baby, come on. You know what, even driving into this probably 25 mile an hour headwind, the bike still has power to accelerate past 80 miles an hour. Yeah, I can still accelerate. I feel the buffeting now because my speed through the air is almost 100 miles an hour because of the wind. I don't know if you can see the bushes kind of blowing around. You got to be willing to rev this engine out. It doesn't have any power below 5,000 RPM. There's nothing happening. All the power of this bike is above 5,000 RPM. This is a pretty good rear wheel test because it's super windy in this banding pass here. Getting blown around. But I'm going 80, 85, 83. And it's okay. I'm surviving just fine. All right, let's throw this thing up the twisty road here and talk about the power of the engine and the suspension, handling, and all that kind of stuff. $65, $70. Okay, so the thing with the engine on the 390, and you really need to understand this if you're going to buy this bike, if you haven't ridden a 390, these engines have basically nothing below about 4,000 to 5,000 RPM. So see, if I'm at 4,000 RPM and I open the throttle, like the acceleration is super slow. You can see that's just wide open throttle. Once the motor gets to about 5,000 RPM, so I'll downshift to demonstrate this. Once the motor gets to about 5,000 RPM, the power comes on. So you see, so you got to be willing, you got to work the engine between 5,000 to 10,000 RPM. If you don't do that, you're going to feel like the bike is slow. Some people have ridden this and said that they felt it was sluggish. It's because you're not revving it enough. You have to really let the engine rev. And a lot of people aren't going to like that. If you like a lot of low-end torque, do not get a 390. It does not have any low-end torque at all. Now off-road, it's kind of pluses and minuses. We'll talk about that in a minute. Now we can talk about the handling. Handling's actually good. I feel comfortable at these aggressive lean angles, and the chassis feels pretty stable. I could probably adjust my damping a little bit, but this is great. I have no issues with this. This is a great little street bike to play in the canyons. It's not fast, but it has some power. The suspension is pretty composed. I'm happy with this in terms of doing this kind of riding. And then, you know, like 65, it feels great. It's just at those high speeds where you start to feel buzziness and it feels kind of busy. I will also say at 65, this fairing is so good. Like, I'm really, like, it's quiet, it's not buffeting. I'm really impressed with the wind protection on this bike. Really, really impressed with it. So let's say you need to accelerate from like, I don't know, 50 to 70. Let me show you. So there's that. It's fine, but you got to downshift the bike. You really have to downshift. So I want to do some brake testing here. Make sure nobody's behind me. Which I don't think they are at the speeds I'm riding. So let's go all the way to 80. F it. Okay, that's a panic stop from 80. That passes my test, man. That is no problem. You really have to lean into the brakes though. You really have to squeeze them pretty hard and trust your ABS. ABS will save your butt, no joke. And you can stop this bike really, really well. I don't know how it would be like with 2 people and luggage, then you might need more brakes, but for 1 person with light luggage, this is just fine. So again, I'll show you the difference of if you try to run the engine in a high gear, it just there's like nothing happening. It's just like but click down 2 gears and you're off. You. This is super fun. Yeah, boy. Get some. You know what this bike feels like? It reminds me of like a half-size 790 Adventure, because it feels like a 790 Adventure kind of in a lot of ways, except it has half the power, and half the power that's obviously a lot less. You're going to ask about the little accessories I've got. So all I've done is I put on a quad lock phone mount because I need that. I put on a small Tusk Olympus tank bag. Kind of fits perfect. Honestly, I just got lucky with that. I can still get to the key. Fits the slope of the tank. Man, that's just a perfect tank bag for this bike. And then the Giant Loop. I need to tighten these straps probably. Giant Loop Mojave saddlebag, the newer one. And then I've got this nap bag from Moscow kind of strapped to the top as an extra bag for my multi-tools and stuff. This is working out well. I've got it kind of rigged up with some different straps here because the bike has like no luggage attachments at all. So it was a little tricky, but it's working fine. It's working fine for now anyway. And then I have been playing with the suspension quite a bit, the clickers and rebound. So for the test, I did have everything set to standard, which is 15 clicks out and everything. But I am playing with it though, otherwise to try to dial it in, because the rear feels a little bit like it's moving around too much. So I just added some rebound to that. We'll see how that is. And then I added some compression to the front. But overall, I'm pretty impressed with the chassis and suspension and handling of this thing. Oh, I did do double take mirrors. These aren't the mirrors that I wanted to use, but I had these in the shop. I'm gonna change them out for the other ones, but the stock mirrors just didn't work for me. I couldn't stand them, so I had to change these out right away to double take. Plus, when I'm going through the brush and everything, I mean these don't break and they don't get loose, you know. All right, I chose this off-road trail. It's really deep ruts and kind of some corners and couple places. I think it's just kind of a good initial test for this, because you really want to know about the suspension and how the weight feels and how it handles, right? So setting this bike up for off-road. So the ride modes, I have my quick select up set to ride mode, so I can go rain, off-road, street, and you can set up the ride modes for the settings that you want. So I've got off-road there. I'll select that, and then so see, I've got off-road configured to be traction control off, but it does have off-road traction control, and I'm going to show you how that works, all right, when we come back up, kind of up the hill. Off-road throttle response, so the throttle response is just how aggressive the throttle is. It doesn't change the power output, but I do like the off-road throttle, which is a little bit more aggressive for off-road, because this bike has so little power. And so that's it. So the nice thing is when you do that, when you go to the off-road mode, it turns, if you want the traction control turn off, if you have that program that way, it does that for you, and it also turns off your rear ABS. And the awesome thing is, watch, when I power cycle the bike, it stays where it was. I don't have to redo it. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how good that is. All right, I think we are ready. Traction control off, rear ABS off. And then I'll show you traction control in a minute. Yeah, so blasting through those really deep ruts there. I've done that on a lot of other bikes. Jump the bike a little bit there. Let's jump off this one a little bit. Whoa! So you're already getting the idea. This bike is light and playful feeling. The suspension is a little bit springy and bouncy feeling, but we can use our clickers to adjust that. That's so much fun. So yeah, it feels, you know, we talked about how it's 50 pounds lighter than the Ibex and the Himalayan, and it feels 50 pounds lighter. Like, it's just very playful, very agile, quick steering. Suspension, it has that long travel suspension feel. So it has a long travel suspension feel, so that when you go fast through rough terrain, it feels more like a dual sport or a dirt bike in terms of the suspension feel. Just plush, and it really absorbs the terrain really, really well. I really like the suspension. Maybe if you're riding like super fast in the desert, it's going to be too soft for you, but I think for most people, you're going to really like it. Talking about sort of the power delivery of the bike. Oh, stay on the trail, come on. Yeah. So the power delivery is kind of a double-edged sword. So below 5,000 RPM, because the bike has so little power, that the acceleration is very docile, very smooth, and you don't break traction. But once the motor gets above 5,000 RPM, it sort of just shoots off, and the rear tire starts to lose traction above 5,000 RPM. So it's not a linear power delivery. You know, in bike reviews we talk about, though, the power is linear. This bike is not. It's like one engine below 5,000 RPM and another engine above 5,000 RPM, and you do get used to it, and I don't mind it, but you have to be ready for it, because it's pretty athletic above 5,000 RPM. It wants to get going pretty good. See, power really comes on. This bike is really fun on this trail. This is like perfect. Brakes feel really good off-road. Good modulation. Suspension is just so good on this, so good. Whoa, that was some brush there. Wow. Okay, deep ruts. I'm gonna have to drop into this rut. Okay, that's fine, no problem. Just point it right at the rocks. It's fine. It just chews up through the rocks. It has no problem. Ooh, that's pretty. Look at all the looping. So yeah, there's the thing, like with the power, like 3,000 RPM, but then once you start once you start revving it, boy, she really takes off. This is the best off-road small adventure bike for sure. This is the best. Like there's no I don't even have to think about it. It feels so much lighter than those other bikes. I can ride it more like I would a dual sport than I would an adventure bike. And I think that's the magic of this bike. It bridges those two things so well. Now, there's something. Sometimes it's just stalls for no reason. Like when I'm trying to take off. Like, I don't know, where I could try to find a hill to kind of show you what I'm talking about. Maybe up here. God, the suspension is good. It just soaks this stuff up. Like if I try to if I stop here, yeah, see, it's stalled again, and I try to take off. See, sometimes it'll stall when you don't really think it's going to. Maybe I need to practice my clutch control, but it does have that tendency, I've noticed quite a bit. You just have to use a lot of revs. KTMs, they like to be treated more aggressively. Whoa, 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 whoa. Ah, yeah, when you start to ride really fast, the suspension is soft, but it's also really good just to sit down and kind of bulldoze through the terrain. It works great. I'm so impressed with this bike off-road. It really, truly is what I was hoping for. Man. Changes direction quick. It tolerates being abused. Whoa, that's okay. Oh. All right. Let me show you the off-road traction control. Okay, so I'm going to go in here to configure off-road. I'm going to turn, MTC back on. Now, you see, it shows the bike kind of slipping out. I thought I heard a motorcycle for a minute. Now, when you switch between street and off-road, the traction control changes a lot. It's not the same level of traction control. So it does have a different mode for the off-road traction control. So did I do it? Okay, let's make sure that. Sometimes it'll say coolant temperature hot or overheating, but because when you let the bike sit, the coolant doesn't circulate and then it gets kind of hot. But the second you turn it back on, the fan runs, it cools down and turns off the light. I've noticed the fan pretty much runs non-stop. When I'm off-road on this bike, the fan never turns off. I'm not saying that's bad, it's just something that I've noticed. So I've got the, whoa, those are some big rocks there. I've got the traction control off-road turned on, and actually this is the perfect kind of terrain to give you a good reason why you might want to use this, is because on this kind of off-camber stuff, without really a good off-road tire, the bike wants to slip around a lot, slide all over the place with the power, but the traction control, you can apply a hell of a lot of power and the bike kind of stays more in line. And it just is it's an aid. It helps you ride better. There's a lot of times you're still going to want to turn it off, but I really like it. Like, because of the way the power on this bike kind of comes on super quick all of a sudden, it can kind of surprise you. And having the traction control keeps the rear end from lighting up too much and stepping out all over the place. I think they did a great job with it. Now, it would have been nice if it was more adjustable, like on the 890s and those, but I'll take it. I'll take what I can get, because the $11,000 Tenere I just bought doesn't have off-road traction control, and this does. See, this is kind of the perfect small adventure bike for me, because I don't really like riding the enduro bikes like my 350. Honestly, they just feel so rattly and they're terrible on the highway. And yeah, they're good off-road, but they suck everywhere else. But this bike, I can go down the freeway, 85. You saw how we did that. And then I can tear up trails like this that I would normally have to take my small KTM 350 on. And it's great. It's really great. I like the traction control. I'm a fan of it. Whoa. Let's go over here. Yeah, that off-road traction control is honestly, it's great. This is a pretty spot right here. Very pretty. Ooh, look, thunderstorms. Super fun bike, super light, playful. The suspension's a little soft and bouncy. We rammed through some bushes there pretty good, but man, I am digging it. I am digging it very, very much. I think this is going to make a lot of people super happy off-road. It feels every bit of 50 pounds lighter than the competitors do. Okay, there is one design flaw that's pretty significant that I want to talk about right now, and it's really important. So I'm going to show you something. Oops. The bike, see how the bike is not going? I've got it says side stand. So what happens when I stand up, if I put my heels downward at all, the side stand gets pushed down because the side stand is in the way where my boot is, and the bike does that and it just shuts down. And then when I lift my leg back up or my boot back up off the foot peg, it turns back on. But see that? So if I can't drop my heels, I can't even ride with my boot flat on the foot peg because it hits the side stand and the bike's dead. So huge design flaw, and I cannot believe that this got past their testing. Let me park here. When I get some level ground, I want to show you what this looks like. Okay, I can park here. By the way, the off-road ABS is phenomenal. Rear ABS, the front ABS is tuned really well for off-road. It would never turn it off, honestly. So here's the thing. So right here, so you can see this spring, you can see where my boot is rubbing off the spring. So my boot is like this, and the heel of my boot is going like this right here, and it's just activating it enough to switch that interlock switch, and and kill the bike. So I really can't ride standing up. The only way I can ride standing up is to kind of keep my boot, keep my toe kind of down, which I don't like to do. I like to ride kind of flat or with my heel down a little bit, and you can see right there, it just hits that and turns that off. I can't believe that got past their testing, and it's going to be a big issue on this bike. That there's going to have to be some way to resolve it, because a lot of people ride standing up off-road, obviously. And depending on the size of your boot, the kind of boot you're wearing, and how your leg position is, everybody has different foot positions that they prefer, and sometimes you drop your heels, sometimes you don't, and it's going to be a huge issue. And so more on that later, but that's the only major flaw with the bike that I've identified, but it's a pretty big one. Okay, so fuel economy, I just filled up the tank all the way. I've got 139.1 miles on this trip. I made sure to reset that when I last filled the tank. The computer says 56 miles a gallon US. Let's see. So I did 139.1 divided by 2.241, 62. So I actually got, that seems too good to be true, doesn't it? 62 miles a gallon? I don't know. If you're a 390 owner, let me know. Is that typical? The computer says 56, so I'm getting better than what the computer says. So how big is the gas tank again? 3.7, 3.8? So let's just say we got 60 times 3.8. So yeah, you should have, even on a bad day, you should be able to squeeze 200 miles out of this, probably more. That's legit. I'm totally happy with that. You guys saw how I was riding it. I wasn't riding it slow. All right, I'm back at the house. I stopped for a sandwich. I made some notes, and so I'm going to give you those notes right now. So pros and cons after my first couple days of riding this bike. The pros for me, the suspension is better than I expected. It works really well off-road. It's class leading. It has the long travel feel that you want when you want to ride fast off-road. Maybe on a little bit on the soft side, but that may be something we could easily address by doing some changes to the spring rates. I also want to mention on the suspension, and I should have done this at the start of the video, is I set my rider sag. So I showed you in the first video how you can take this panel off and set the sag using a preload adjuster tool. I did that with my riding gear and my bags and stuff on here, and I'm very happy to report that I didn't have to max out the preload to achieve 30% sag. So 30% of total travel, which on this bike, I forget, I think it was like 78 millimeters, something like that. I was able to achieve that without having to max out the preload. That's really good, and that means that they didn't put too weak of a spring in the bike for the American riders, and that's a really nice thing. The Tenere in the garage that I just bought, I have the preload maxed out, and I still can't achieve the correct riding sag on that bike. So at least KTM did this part really well. The next pro for me is the lightweight. On paper, 50 pounds lighter than its competitors, 23 kilograms lighter. And it feels every bit of that, especially off-road. It really, truly does. The off-road confidence, I feel super confident to charge off-road terrain on this bike, and I think that's because of the low weight, and it's narrow, and it's just nimble, and it's got the suspension to do that. If I make a mistake, the bike is not so big, like on a GS or even like a Africa Twin or something, where it just ruins the whole day and it's a difficult situation. When you drop the bike or crash the bike, or you're just not going to go down the difficult trails because you don't have any confidence, this does away with that because this is so small and light compared to that. Wind management of this fairing is really superb. I'm super impressed with it. I don't even feel a need to throw on my usual little spoiler thing. I don't feel a need to do that. I'm super happy with that. It's way better than they have on the 790 and the 890s. What are the downsides? So I showed you the kickstand thing. It's a real issue, and I don't know if any of you know anything about this or maybe how to fix it. I would love to know. I think it'll probably involve having to defeat the sensor by using some sort of a jumper or something. That would be, I mean, in a way, you'd be making it unsafe, because if you ride away with the kickstand down, you could have a huge accident. But on the other hand, it's very difficult to ride standing up off-road with the situation as it is now. The only other downside I could think of is that the engine has no low-end power. So if you like low-end torque, if that's something you need, it just doesn't have it. Below about 4,000, 5,000 RPM, the motor has nothing to give, and you really have to be willing to rev the bike up really high to get any power out of it. Where does this sit in the marketplace? So it's 90 pounds lighter than a KTM 890 Adventure R. 90 pounds, almost 100 pounds lighter. That's crazy. So there's that. It's 50 pounds lighter than a Himalayan or an Ibex 450. Now, it is heavier than like a DRZ400 or KTM 690 or a CRF300. It's heavier than a dualsport, but it should be, because look at all the kind of the touring stuff you have, the bigger gas tank, the windshield, all the electronics and everything that it has to have. You saw how this was cruising down the freeway at 80 miles an hour, 85 miles an hour. Let me give you a description of riding a DRZ or a CRF300L or a KTM 690 on the highway at 85 miles an hour. It would be like sitting on a 2x4 in a Force 5 Hurricane with a dentist drill up your butt. That's how riding a dual sport feels. And you know I'm telling the truth because you've done that, right? We've all been there. But with this, I feel like you get just enough because of the wind protection and the gearing and how it's set up, the stability and the extra weight, that you can actually realistically go 80 miles an hour without feeling like you're going to be torn off the motorcycle, or your teeth are going to fall out of your head. Comparing it to like a CRF300L Rally, that's kind of a close comparison, I think, in terms of what the bike is intended to do. But this blows away that bike in terms of power, in terms of suspension and chassis performance, and all of that stuff. And this has more electronics and more features. So I think that's going to be a tough one, but that's something to look at. I mean, you're talking about 25 horsepower on the Honda versus 44 horsepower. There's just no comparison. So I think my conclusion is, on this bike, is that right now there's really nothing else on the market like it, and if you're looking for something like this, you don't have any other choices right now. You'd have to choose one of those other things I talked about and accept those pros and cons to those other bikes, but there's nothing else really that sits in the market where this does right now, and I think that puts KTM in a really good place. I do need to get some real handguards on here, because if I have some accidents, these are not going to do anything. The skid plate, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think I probably need to figure out a skid plate, but there's no aftermarket. The bike came out. So the problem with being an early adopter is there's nothing for this bike. There's nothing. I mean, I don't even know if I can get handguards to fit on it. I ordered some, but we'll see. There's nothing aftermarket. So you're kind of stuck with what you get. And that's kind of one of the problems of being an early adopter. So anyway, that's going to do it. I'm going to go inside, shower, get this video edited so I can get this out for you guys. I hope this was informative and useful. Please support the channel. There's ways to do that down below. Ride safe. I will see you out there.